You're listening to the Morphology Podcast. Thanks for tuning into the Morphology Podcast, aka Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from cyclists who have pedaled to places all over. Each week, we will get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? Well, Frankie Holt wasn't really into cycling when she had a life-changing experience while on a bike trip with her sister. She was in her 40s, and that bicycle trip gave her new energy, new confidence, and the realization that freedom came with cycling. She also realized she couldn't find a cycling bag that was quite right for what she needed. So she went about creating her own, and her company, Fierce Hazel, was born. At Fierce Hazel, Frankie sells products that are unique, eco-friendly, and sustainable. She cares about the planet along with the people who make her products, and even uses rescued materials that would otherwise end up in the landfill. Frankie has created and sells the lightest full-size wallet out there, along with other bike bags that are functional and appeal to everyone. On this episode, Frankie tells us about her journey into cycling and starting her California-based, woman-owned bicycle bag company. You can find Fierce Hazel products at fiercehazel.com. For now, here's Frankie. A very warm welcome to Frankie Holt. Hi, Frankie.
Hey, so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I said this in the intro, but you own an amazing women-owned bicycle bag company called Fierce Hazel, and I want to get into that. And there's so many questions I have about Fierce Hazel, especially the name, which spoiler alert, I already read up on it and I love the story. But before we get into, your successes as a business owner, will you tell the listeners where you live now and what the cycling culture is like?
Yeah, definitely. One, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with you today. And yeah, I live in Los Angeles, kind of in the center, like Hollywood area.
Oh, wow.
And there's a tremendous cycling culture here. It's mostly road cycling. I think the nature of LA and the weather, we get lots of pro athletes. So the level of cycling tends to be fairly high, which is both good and bad. A lot of the group rides are very fast. It's a huge community, but it can be hard to break into.
Sure.
If you're new to cycling. Actually, I didn't start cycling until after I turned 40.
Oh, wow.
And it changed my life. I first clipped into a bike actually in North Carolina, Blue Ridge Mountains. My sister and her husband took me on just a little bike trip, and I fell in love with it, totally fell in love with cycling, especially being in the mountains and that kind of solo riding with friends or with family, but it just felt great. And I got back to LA and I knew nothing about where to bike here. I did some commuting when I was in college, but I had no idea where to start. Luckily, I kind of met someone who introduced me to how to get a bike and this and that. And by the stroke of good luck, my first group ride was with an incredible, very inclusive, very welcoming group, which knowing what I know now, looking back, that was just a stroke of luck.
And it could have been a deal breaker had it been the opposite. Had it been
absolutely.
You got to go as fast as you can. Your kit has to be at least $300, and there's so many other factors.
Oh, so much. Yeah. Many of us are very influenced by who we meet. And so I showed up, it was by myself to the parking lot. There were people, getting their bikes out, and I didn't know anyone because my friend couldn't make it that day. And, some women, it was the women and men ride, but some women came up, and there was this very nice woman cyclist, who stayed with me the whole time and helped me with flats. And it was just kind of an ideal scenario for our first group ride. And as I got, more and more into cycling, I met other groups in LA and ventured out. And it's very much a road cycling culture. Also when I started biking, it was around, well, I turned 40 in 2008. So it was in that time period. And it was before there was, I think, you gravel racing. There was cross racing, but like there weren't
Mm-hmm.
even gravel bikes. And LA is just, sunny most of the year round. There's incredible mountain climbing and kind of Malibu and lots of hills. So it's very conducive for that kind of epic road cycling culture.
Right,
Um,
right. And when I think of LA, maybe it's because I'm an Iowan, but I'm thinking like major traffic and you stopping and starting a gazillion times. But I'm gonna guess you know where to go to find the beauty and the, like you said, the mountains and all the good stuff.
yeah, and there's definitely both. There's definitely that. Like the first group that I started riding with, they were very much kind of in the city, but being in a big group, there was always 20 to 40 people starting out.
Oh
So
yeah.
you're definitely safer going through town when you can take the lane. But yeah, you can, unfortunately, you do need, well, for my type of cycling, road cycling, a car, to drive to Malibu or to drive to the San Gabriel Mountains
Mm-hmm.
and kind of start from a different place. I'm lucky where I live in LA. I can quickly get to Griffith Park, which is it's where the observatory is.
Mm.
But there is kind of a gravel community that started, so that's another option these days.
And I was just going to ask you if, as the years have progressed, have you dabbled more into gravel or are you still primarily road?
I feel like I'm primarily gravel,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
100%. Well, it is like you mentioned the car issue.
Yep.
Um, Unfortunately, like many of us over the years, we know people or have accidents, and when I'm on gravel, I just feel like I'm a kid again. Like it's definitely, it's effort and it's a little bit harder. And I
Yeah.
think actually the type of cycling that gravel is more conducive to me and my body type and what I like,
Uh-huh.
which is slightly more, like shorter rides that are maybe harder with more power. Still you have to be on point, looking for, rocks and holes and all that kind of stuff that we know about. So it definitely takes a nice concentration, but I feel like I'm more in the moment of cycling as opposed to worrying about cars.
Yeah.
And yeah.
My experience biking in California is pretty limited because I rode across America and we
Oh, very cool.
started in San Diego.
Hmm.
So my only experience was from the coast, to the state border. But even in that small amount of time, I think, of course, we saw the ocean, but then we did some major climbs. For some reason, I think it was just the adventure cycling maps we had to ride on. I think it's Interstate 10 for
Mm-hmm.
several days where
Yeah, I kind of know the
traffic,
route a little bit from watching it, or yeah.
yeah, but I need to come back and experience gravel because it just sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not amazing. Like, I mean, I would love, I can't wait to bike in Iowa
Yeah,
at some point. It's not, it's amazing in a different way.
yeah.
It's not from my experience of, not that I've biked a ton of places in the US on gravel, but I prefer to leave LA just because, yeah, there's more.
Hmm.
Like you can get on a gravel road and just bike for many, many miles, where here in LA, it tends to be more technical and a little more steep.
Oh, okay.
And there's for sure there's areas, but you kind of end up doing the same loops when you're it's unless you're super daredevil-ish, and I'm not super daredevil-ish. Like I don't like I'm not, I'm not keen on a lot of single track, oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm just like, that's not my vibe.
Yep.
So I love when I can leaving LA and getting outside. Even I've discovered recently Patagonia, Arizona,
Hmm.
which is a day's drive from where I live in LA. And it's south of Tucson, and they have a really nice gravel community, and even have some like gravel specific Airbnbs you can stay at and
Oh, wow.
routes. And just really, when I can, I love to travel other places for
Oh, yeah.
gravel.
Okay, so you're riding your bike, and at some point you decided that you needed either a bag or something a place to store your stuff while biking, right?
Yeah.
So
Um,
tell us the story of how this, thought or quest became a full-fledged business.
yeah, I mean, a couple things led up to it. I mean, as I mentioned, I didn't start biking until after I turned 40, and it really kind of changed my life. It's kind of it's on the bike where I feel like the most confident and where I have the most fun for sure. But um, but getting to that place was significant, not just for biking, but before I was 40, had been in some abusive relationships
Mm.
and had like obese. And so what I had learned was by the time I was 40, like I had the ability to make my life better.
Mm.
I could make the changes that made me happier. So when I was single again and found the bike, it really just kind of made me like I said this before, but like I felt like I was a kid again, and I just
Yeah.
ran with it. And so I really got into cycling. I mentioned that I found a nice group of cyclists here in LA to start biking with, and I just got more and more into it to the point where I was competing in events,
Mm.
kind of racing. And in my 40s, like again, two things happened. Was one is that I developed fibroids, which if there's any women or maybe men out there that know about that, you often get a lot of heavy bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was happening, especially during these long training rides, because I was training for kind of these epic endurance events, like long, big rides,
Mm-hmm.
is that I had heavy bleeding during my training rides. And I was actually kind of embarrassed about it, like having tampons in my back pocket, which I know I was a grown woman, but it was just, I don't know, I was embarrassed and it was weird for me. And then there was nothing on the market that suited the needs of like a menstruating person. Like there just wasn't anything out there. Um, and the second thing that happened was, like I said, I was training for these big events, and this one event still ongoing, and it's started in the LA, Southern California area, and it turned out to be a very non-inclusive event. Like for example, the SAG stops had like women in bikinis to like encourage you on,
Oh.
and there were race segments that were named after kind of derogatory sexual positions. It was
Mm.
just very. I mean, this was what year was it? 2015. So things have changed a bit since then, but it was just actually, a lot of women backed out,
Right.
but I'd been training for it. I'd actually hired a coach to kind of get me in shape, and I didn't want to, I trained for it. So I wanted to do it. And it was, it's like 147 miles. It was now we would call it gravel riding, but it was a lot of dirt riding, and we were just riding road bikes. So I was riding like tires that were, 25. It was
Oh my
like
gosh. Wow.
going down, yeah, single track and dirt and rock gardens, and it was crazy. And I finished. I didn't. I crashed. Well, I was crashed out a couple of times, but it was very epic, and I finished. But what was at the end of the race, even though I finished it, I didn't feel super acknowledged.
Mm.
Um, because what happened over the couple of years of biking is I found myself in a group of people that you kind of needed to be as fast as them to be as good as them. That was
Ah.
kind of the mentality. And I mean, I see that now, but what had happened is like this sport that had given me so much joy, it kind of was losing its sparkle.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of lost touch with that person who got me started biking in the first place. So years passed. I was kind of like feeling blah about cycling. I was missing it, but then I kind of remembered what had got me there in the first place. That is, if there's something that I didn't like, I could change it. And that's when I created my all conditions ride pouch, which is a little pouch that is designed to fit in your back jersey pocket to put all your basics like your ID, has a little place for a handy wipe, but it also has a slot for a
I
tampon.
was just gonna say, I bet you it had a place for a
Yeah.
tampon.
And the same with I have a larger size wallet, which is the Tour de Fierce ultralight cycling case in the front. It has a slot, and you can put anything in it: chapstick, a pen, a pencil, tire
Mm-hmm.
lever. But the thought was that you could put a tampon in there,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wanted to have products that weren't necessarily gender specific. You don't have to be a menstruating person to use them, but they were just designed with all people in mind. And it was the vibe of the brand. I really wanted to feel as if it is inclusive to all people,
Mm-hmm.
and really support anyone who bikes. It's not about racing. If you do race, it's cool. Like, I enjoy it when I can, but it's just about getting out there and trying to, for me, latch into that first feeling of that first group ride,
Mm-hmm.
where it was just a nice feeling, but it was hard, and you pushed yourself, but you had someone there to help you when you needed it. It was, yeah. So that's the start of Fierce Hazel.
Yeah. And did you make those first bags with the intention to sell them to other women, or were you doing it like, I just need this for myself? And then people started seeing it and going, oh my gosh, where'd you get that?
Yeah, a little bit. It was both-ish. I made it for myself, and initially just with other women, thinking I would just sell to women.
Mm-hmm.
And as things progressed and I'm learning, I mean, I went into starting Fierce Hazel with absolutely no experience in gear design or even being in the outdoor industry. And I knew I wanted to make products that didn't look like anyone else, and or any other product, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And as I learned more and more about the industry and making gear, I learned about the astronomical waste that happens in manufacturing. And I mean, it was a different story, but that's what led me to this factory in Vietnam where I make it. That's an ethical factory using dead stock. But back to your question, is that I thought I would be making items for women, but also looking at the cycling industry, a couple things. One, it's mostly men
Mm-hmm.
that are cyclists for, well, that's not necessarily true, but for better or for worse, that's the market. But also, I didn't want to, in the spirit of being inclusive, I didn't want to design things for just one
Like one
demographic.
use. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
or one
Mm-hmm.
demographic. Like,
Right.
I really want, I like all, it's for everyone, men, women, and in fact, most of my customers' demographic are men, which I'm kind of, I wouldn't say I'm proud of, but it's like I found a nice community of people
Mm-hmm.
who don't care if there's a slot for a tampon because they can put a pin in there,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and
Maybe some beef
uh,
jerky or something.
yeah. And I didn't make it, I mean, kind of for myself, but the little pouch, it was an item that was missing in the industry. Like, so many people use Ziploc bags to put their phone in and their ID,
Mm-hmm.
and of course we all acclimate. You find something that makes, a little pouch for carrying pencils or something you use. And I wanted to make something that was very specific to the jersey pocket,
Mm-hmm.
for exactly for those essentials. So that item, I think it was missing from the market when I first made it.
A quick interruption to tell you this week's episode is sponsored by the Buffalo Lodge Bicycle Resort. Located in Colorado Springs, Colorado, this is the outdoor enthusiast ideal place to stay for fun and relaxation. The lodge is nestled at the base of Pikes Peak and just a half mile from Garden of the Gods Park. Learn more at bicycleresort.com. Now back to the show. Can you tell us how the name Fierce Hazel came to be?
Yeah, well, fierce is, well, a couple of is just fierce. Like, how can you not like the word fierce?
Right.
Because it's a fun word. And Hazel came when I was in college. I was did a lot of making my own clothes. One for economic reasons because I kind of had to, but also I was overweight, and at the time, very hard time finding clothes that fit me.
Mm.
I was in college in the late 80s, and I just didn't know where to go to find big size clothes. And so made a lot of my own clothes, and being a kind of the ironic art school student, I was at a thrift store and I saw these tags and they said specially fashioned by Hazel.
Mm.
And so the clothes that I made, I would sew this tag into, thinking it was just fun and ironic.
Cool.
But that kind of like alter ego kind of stayed with me, kind of just as the kind of person that when you need something, you can make it yourself.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I don't know if it's an alter ego or just part of my personality. And so putting Fierce and Hazel together seemed to make sense. And also it fit my personality, but also the vibe I want to put out with Fierce Hazel, the company, that you can do hard things and do fierce things and just be the Hazel, do it at your own pace and feel awkward and maybe not look like what the dominant culture says you should look like. And it's just a nice mix. And also the initials kind of match my name. So FH, Frankie Holt, Fierce Hazel, it kind of goes together. And yeah, it just seemed to fit for some reason. And also I wanted to be a little bit unique.
Yeah.
So that's kind of stood out as being different.
And it's perfect for what you just explained. Like it's, I don't know if you put all of this deep thought into it when you first, originally was like, you know what, I'm going to make a bag and call it Fierce Hazel, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I would say based on what you've just told us that, some of the things that you're really proud of is that, you're women owned and that, men still buy your products. But do you have something that you're most proud of when you think of Fierce Hazel?
I mean, a couple things. I mean, I'm definitely, well, product-wise, I'm most proud of the ultralight wallet that we make.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's a full-size wallet and it's the lightest one in the industry. Like it's lighter than any other full-size wallet on the planet.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's made out of dead stock.
Mm.
It's a ultra lightweight material, and that's one of the reasons I found the factory in Vietnam, because I wanted to work with this ripstop that's super lightweight. It's water resistant, but you have to seam seal it and laser cut it. And I think it's pretty cool that I made the lightest one that you can find for a full-size wallet. And I think that is pretty cool. And also out of dead stock, so using leftover material from the factory. So other companies, so dead stock, and how I use it is this factory in Vietnam, they make gear for other outdoor brands.
Mm-hmm.
And often these bigger companies order too much or have leftover fabric, and it just sits. Well, often it's just thrown away, because often companies make fabric that is in a custom color or has their branding on it, and so no one else can use it. Like imagine Tiffany's made a cycling wallet and they would put their Tiffany blue. Well, no, that's trademarked. Like no other company can use Tiffany blue. And most big brands have their custom colors. And if they make their own fabric in their company branding colors, like I can't use, no one else can use it. So that gets thrown away.
Right.
Which is just kind of a travesty. But
yeah.
But many companies, make stuff using kind of off-the-shelf colors, and they order too much. They want to make sure they have enough, and there's just stuff left over at the factory. And because this factory makes gear for other kind of high-end outdoor companies and brands, anyway, they save the material, and so I use it for my products, which is why the pouches and the wallets have a kind of a mix match of colors, because I'm just using what they have left over. And so I think is pretty cool. And actually, another cool thing about the factory is I'm the first woman they've ever worked with.
Oh, no way. Wow. Have you been able to go to Vietnam to actually go to the factory?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was important for me to go there just to check out the work environment.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I chose Vietnam, well, they have a history of just having good craftsmanship and the skills that are needed to make this type of product. But I wanted to go over and check out the factory and make sure it was doing my due diligence to the best of my ability to make sure it's a good place to make my product.
For sure.
And it was helpful because while I was over there, I mean, I checked out other factories. One story I kind of interesting learning experience was I thought I would make, because knowing I would be using leftover material, I wouldn't necessarily have a certain branding colorway for my products. I'm
Mm.
just using whatever they have. And I thought, well, maybe I'd have like a really fun custom zipper pull to make with the Fierce Hazel logo, and it'd be, something cool to put on the zipper pull. And so while I was there, I went to a zipper pull factory,
Mm.
and the one that I went to was a big one, and there was probably 100 people working in this huge warehouse factory. And you walk in, and it just smells of plastic. Just smell
Mm.
it. And what it is was like mostly women sitting in front of these plastic mold pouring machines, whatever they're called, and every zipper pull is plastic poured into a mold that they pull off one mold might have 6 to 10 different little zipper molds in it, but they're just sitting in front of plastic all day long. And
Wow.
I'm like, oh, I don't want to be a part of this. Like,
Yeah.
we have to use plastic. I'm not saying it's, it's the best of my ability. I want to make choices that aren't going to harm other people. And when
Right.
I went to a zipper pull factory and saw how zipper pulls are made, I was just like, wow. So that's why when I can, my zipper pulls are made from just the fabric that's
Mm-hmm.
sewn together. And I do have some ultralight plastic like key fobs and whatnot, but when you're buying off the shelf, so to speak, not custom made, they have a better environmental impact as opposed to making custom plastic pieces.
And how
Um,
interesting to actually go and see firsthand, like a lot of things that you look at in life, and for you, your business, like, oh, wonder how this is made. And then you kind of maybe shrug it off and move on. But to actually see it and go, oh, geez, yeah, I don't
oh
want to be
yeah.
part of that.
Well, the whole process of starting this business has been such a great learning experience in so many ways for me. But that's definitely a big one, the one that you just touched on, and
Mm-hmm.
just seeing that everything down to our underwear is made by hand.
Wow.
Everything's made by hand. Like we're so detached from how things are made these days that was eye opening, and
Yeah.
also to feel like I want to feel myself, but also with those who might buy Fierce Hazel products or choose other environmentally friendly products, that we can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it can feel so overwhelming when you think about our systems, and it just gets overwhelming. But we can make a difference. Little choices here and there help.
Oh,
Like
for
one
sure.
one sale to my business helps me.
Mm-hmm.
Where once it makes a difference. And even down to all my product packaging, wherever possible. I don't use any plastics, and most of my items are packaged in cotton bags that come from the factory. So even the packaging from the factory,
Mm.
there's no plastic.
Mm. And you've come such a long way from that first thought of, I need a little pouch to put in my jersey. And I'm
Hmm.
on your website right now, and I can see all the different products that you now have. Like, do you have a favorite? Well, this is probably like, asking which child is your favorite. So, assuming that none of your
Well,
products are listening right now, do you have like a
well, I do
favorite
have a
right now?
couple. Well, I mean, this kind of goes back to the being at the factory, and the factory. But another fun, what do you call it, serendipitous moment. When I was at the factory, they were making a product for another company that were these kind of outdoor hammock cocoon-like things.
Hmm.
And part of the process of making these big outdoor hanging things, cocoons, was they would cut out a big circle of fabric. That would be where it would enter into this cocoon, just hammock kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And those pieces of fabric was being thrown away, going
Oh,
to
wow.
landfill. And
Wow.
they're pretty big pieces of scrap. They weren't like little, they were like, I don't know, a few, anyway, a nice big piece of scrap. And I'd had this idea that at some point in the future, I wanted to make a little backpack.
Mm.
I'd found this vintage Swiss Army backpack from the World War II, I think, at a Paris flea market. And I thought it'd be really handy on the bike for all kinds of people. And I happened to bring it with me. And so, again, my luck would have it, there was this fabric on the floor that I discovered, and we made it into our first a backpack. It's the Urban Explorer bag.
Oh.
But that fabric, I think, is what I'm most proud of discovering. It's called olefin, and even though it is a petroleum product, but it's one of the most eco-friendly, lowest carbon footprint materials out there because
Oh.
it's actually made from petroleum waste. So it was invented by an Italian scientist in the 60s. That was when plastic manufacturing was just going full steam, like the beginning of it. And there was still a lot of waste happening that was just going out into the oceans, like just petroleum waste.
Mm.
And so this fabric is made from petroleum waste. So it's super durable. You can barely get it to stain. It's extremely water resistant, and and then I think that's where coming from outside of the outdoor industry was helpful because I saw this fabric that is typically used for different types of outdoor activities.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, I can use it for gear. And the factory that I was working or am working with were very skilled, and they thought, hey, we think it's doable too. And so using olefin for that first Urban Explorer bag, but now I use it on the True Grit line, which is a handlebar bag and a saddle bag.
Mm.
I'm the only uh, brand company that I know of using olefin to make bags out of.
Wow.
Um,
And you're using such a great resource with fabric that would otherwise be destroyed or put it in a
mhm.
landfill or all that good stuff.
Yes, yeah. So I'm not sure that's my favorite one, but I am proud of discovering this fabric. And so far, I mean, I've been fortunate with with this new line of True Grit. Well, new, I mean, came out last year, but having handle like on the bike bags
Mm-hmm.
and having some pro cyclists test it, and I mean, it's held up. It's a really great fabric. So it's that would be my baby, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah. And we'll talk about it at the end, but fiercehazel.com is where you listeners need to go. But wait till you're done with this podcast before you go, right?
Right, of course. It'll be there.
Yeah, it'll still be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, like being a women-owned business, like going out to Vietnam and being the first women that they would work with. I'm assuming that there are plenty of other challenges that you face as a female-owned business. Do you want to touch on any?
Yeah, people have asked me that before, and it's hard. I don't really know how to respond just because I don't have any other basis to compare it to.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
because I am a woman, like I don't know how would be different. I can guess. I mean, I think most of my struggles is more from coming from outside the typical cycling industry,
Mm-hmm.
like not being part of that dominant culture. Whether it's one, I'm a woman, and two, I didn't get into biking until after I was 40.
Mm-hmm.
So I love going to these big bike events, like for example like Sea Otter, which is a race that has over the past few years, especially since some of the biking trade shows have fallen by the wayside. It's just almost like a big trade show for cycling, and it's cool. Like I love cycling culture, and that's why I got into Fierce Hazel because
Mm.
I love all bike stuff. Road bikes, racing. I think it's just cool. But you go there, or I go there, and I'm like, oh wow, it's a lot of dudes. you know, there's still a lot of dudes. like, and and also again, I'm older, and I think a lot of people get into, say, making gear because they were cyclists and they get into it and they know people in the industry and they start that way. So coming in from outside, I think is a little bit harder. But what I like about that, or what works for me, is that I identify with whoever, like, outside the dominant cycling culture, whatever that may be,
Mm-hmm.
which is most of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's most of us. I forget the statistics, but there's something like 14 million people with bikes in the U.S., and then the people who bike, I think over a third of the 104 I have it in front of me. So this is from people with bikes. They do surveys
Mm-hmm.
every year.
Yep.
Um, and from 2022, basically there's about 5 million people who bike at least 104 days a year. So that would mean, a third of their time is days are on the bike. And that's 5 million people, right? But people who are registered road cyclists are like 110,000 people.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
so like, so we are the people,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, it's like anything. It's like, understand like the top end, they kind of drive the trends, but I, I really like finding the communities that aren't necessarily
The super elite.
the race call. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I appreciate. I mean, I love. I mean, I definitely enjoy kind of being on the fringe
Mm-hmm.
of pro cycling because I'm such a. It's like being athletes. I mean, I'm such a admirer of the dedication that it takes and the time
Right.
to put
Right.
in to get to the top of the field. But I just like riding my bike, like with friends on a gravel road and being in shape enough to do it. And I have, through like events like RPI, which I've been to a couple times. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a big fan of Rebecca Rush, who is, the Queen of Pain, world cyclist. I mean, her credentials are too many to even list.
Right.
Uh, but she is a great example, and also the other pros that she works with and are friends with are really inclusive. And like her event, Rebecca's Private Idaho, is one that I've been to, and I've seen another. Speaking of which, at Sea Otter, she has a presence there.
Mm.
She's sponsored, I think, by Live Cycling, and she has her Be Good Foundation, which is an amazing foundation that Fierce Hazel we sponsor a little bit or donate to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she makes a huge effort to get all kinds of people on bikes. And the last year when I was at Sea Otter, different companies and they do sponsored rides like ride with the pro, this and that, and the people that show up for her rides are such a great mix. Like you can see all genders, all colors of
Mm-hmm.
people, and from pros down to non-pros,
Mm-hmm.
and that happens by making an effort. It doesn't mean you just say, hey, everyone's invited. It means you have to put in the time, the money, and the resources to actually reach out, find those people,
Yeah.
give them money, help them, because it does feel exclusionary if you're coming from outside the industry. And anyway, so I really appreciate that type of vibe, and hopefully my products appeal to everyone. I mean, they're definitely designed to stand up to a pro cyclist needs,
Mm-hmm.
super lightweight and water resistant and all that kind of good stuff. But I think they're products that any cyclist can use and will be helpful for anyone.
And assuming, I mean, I don't even have to say this, that you use your own products,
Hmm.
what's your, I don't know, favorite snack or item that you keep in one of your bags?
Oh, I love snacks. I love snacks. Well, I have my handlebar bag. I mean, I use that on everything, not just my gravel bike, but my road bike, just because I've become such a fan of the burrito bag concept. And you'll pretty much always find a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in there. That's just
Ah,
my go-to, or or that's it.
my
I love peanut
favorite
butter and jelly sandwich. Yeah,
my favorite peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are slightly smushed and at room
definitely
temperature.
smushed.
Yeah,
Oh, 100%.
it's my
Yeah,
favorite. Yep.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, on a good day, you might even add a little bit of honey in there too.
Oh, that's
You
risky.
need the right.
Gonna get that bread all soggy, but and I did. Okay, so this is a tip. You may already know this, but I did the Grand Canyon, and we packed peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that were extremely smushed when we ate them. But
Mhm,
the trick that the friend that I was with told me was that if you put peanut butter on both pieces of bread, and
mhm,
then jelly on top of the
mhm.
peanut butter, when you smash your bread together, it
Yeah,
won't get wet and soggy. And
that's
that was
key.
like, that's a game changer for
That's
me.
key.
Yeah.
Well, also you get to have more peanut butter.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Something about a slightly squished sandwich is really appealing to me.
I know. Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of eating in general. I think we all
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah.
Um, But as we know, again, there's that dominant cycling culture that has all this toxic weight diet things, and something that I've learned, especially through the coaching that I get from Base Camp, which is the winter training program,
Mm-hmm.
and is that most people overtrain and under recover. And I've kind of taken that to heart, or trying to learn from that, and really um, eat more and recover better.
Mm-hmm.
And I found, through my party of one experiment, but it's but it seems to be working, just by eating more and fueling better on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually why I do love my the handlebar bag, the True Grit bag, because I can keep lots of snacks up there, and I love to snack.
Yeah.
I love snacks. I love snacks.
Yep.
I love even stopping at the, whatever, the gas station and picking up a Snickers bar
Right.
or whatever. It's just fun, and kind of getting rid of, or working to get rid of that bad evil thoughts of like you need to like starve yourself on the bike or some
Yeah.
crazy crap like that. Like,
Well,
just
and it goes
makes
back
me so
to
angry.
well, and it goes back to feeling like a kid. Like you're on your
Yeah.
bike, you're having fun, and I'm gonna have a Snickers because I can.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
I am also part of that base camp you mentioned, and it is definitely a different thought process. The way that you eat and when you eat and the amount of
Hmm.
protein, and it's really interesting and eye opening.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially just looking at, I mean, just the science.
right,
I'm not a science person, but I appreciate when other people tell me. And just like carbs are energy.
right,
That's where you get your energy from.
yeah,
I mean, it's just science. Like, you need them to get your bike.
right,
They just it's a,
right,
like,
right, yeah,
it's science.
yeah,
It's like we're not. Then maybe there's 1% in the population that don't fit that, but yeah,
right. Well,
you
and
need
there's
to
a
eat them.
and when you're riding your bike, it's a whole different world than sitting on your couch all day. So that's,
Yeah,
that's a whole different topic, I guess. But
yeah.
so I read on your website and absolutely love this. It's a quote, so I'm going to read it to you, even though
Okay.
you're the one that said it. But you said, "On my bike, I can choose where I want to go, for how long, and who with. I am in control and living in the moment. There are no rules." I
Hmm.
absolutely love that quote. Like, and it's back to what you said earlier, where we are the people. We are the ones riding our bikes and having fun.
Yeah, I agree. And also it gets back to a little bit about being in control of one's life. And I'm responsible for making myself happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been something that I've had to learn as an exercise, like just as a thing to, I know if I'm feeling down, which happens a lot. I think we all know. Anyway, it's a fact of life for me. And I'm like, oh, what's going to help me is to get up and do something. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always have to be to get on the bike, which is ideal if you can, but just to get up and do something. It's a little bit of that taking action and being consistent. Um, and yeah, so I found that it works. Like when I get out on my bike, all of a sudden I'll say it again, like I'm a happy kid again.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's great to have enough fitness. And I try to be grateful as much as I can to remember to know that when I have the fitness, which is now to be able to get outside and ride my bike and go wherever I want to. It's such a gift, and I don't want to remember that, like I'm lucky. I'm lucky I get to do this because
Mm-hmm.
it is pretty freaking fun.
Yeah.
you know?
Pretty freaking fun, yes.
Yeah.
And we briefly mentioned RPI and you mentioned Sea Otter, and based on your Instagram, I know you've like ridden your bike in other countries as well, which
Mm-hmm.
is that's a whole different. We could do a whole podcast on just talking about that. But
Yeah.
do you have any adventures on your horizon as far as bicycle related?
I have signed up for an event in Montana called the Last Best Ride,
Hmm.
which looks like it's in July, just another really fun, inclusive event that's woman run. And I've never been to Montana. So I am looking to sign up for events or go places just to help me it's a motivation to leave LA,
Yeah.
leave this area, and just to find new places to ride. Like I just really enjoy riding my bike other places. So Montana's gonna be a fun one. I've enjoyed finding a place called Patagonia in Arizona, which has a really nice gravel culture down there and not too far of a drive from LA. I've enjoyed for sure Sun Valley and Ketchum, RPI, and I would love to do Iowa.
I was going to say, you're always
amazing.
invited to Iowa
And
Ragbri.
And Bentonville looks fun.
Yeah.
So many places. And and I have been lucky to bike in Italy a few times. And during the first time I went, it was one of those things where a friend mentioned it and this ride, and at the time it was like, oh, if I don't do this, I'm going to feel regrets. And so I try to look at I often look at things that way. It's like things are hard, or can be hard and scary, but like if I don't do it, well, I feel like I regret not doing it. And if I say yes, I'm like, well, maybe I should try that, because I'm still trying to, stretch myself and do hard things. And everyone has a different version of what's hard. But for me, it is actually kind of hard to get out to new places and meet new people. Is for this introvert can be a stretch, but it's always worthwhile. Like, I meet great people, wonderful people, and it's just cool. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. This has been such a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. I guess it's via microphone to microphone instead of in person, but
in person one day for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Whether it's Iowa or RPI or some other event, I hope that we our paths cross in real life. But
I'm sure they will.
Will you tell the listeners again where they can buy Fierce Hazel, and also if they want to follow you on any socials?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Fiercehazel.com is the best place and one of the only places to buy the Fierce Hazel product. And on Instagram is fierce.hazel. It should be pretty easy. And actually, I enjoy Instagram for the community. I think it's a really nice place where I get to learn about other events and other people, and just keep learning, really.
And I absolutely love your Instagram because you're always smiling and happy, and it just gives me that same positive energy when I look at your face or your Instagram page. Yeah. So like you're riding your bike and you're like, yay, I'm riding my bike. And then I'm like, I need to go do that.
Pretty much how it is. I mean, like many of us, we tend to post the highlights, the better
for sure, yeah.
part of. But I really am pretty much always happy on the bike, so it's win-win.
I love it. Well, Frankie, thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your story and Fierce Hazel.
Well, Murph, thanks so much. It's really been a pleasure speaking with you. I really feel honored to be a part of your podcast, so thank you.
Well, listeners, that's it for this week. Email me at murphologypodcast@gmail.com if you have a topic or the name of a cyclist you find interesting. Support my podcast at patreon.com/murphology and visit both my Facebook and Instagram pages for daily entertainment. I have more great episodes in the pipeline, so I hope you continue to be a Murphology podcast listener.